guys. This is the sacred feminine geometry aspect that my friend was talking about. So, sacred connection. Obviously, this is a slideshow, I guess. Anyways, I'll go through this slowly. The feminine principle. The sacred feminine principle creates any form from the infinitely small, from the singularity, a point of infinite potential, up to the infinitely large. Every form remains connected to this point. It becomes its center, still at the heart of the movement. At the quantum scale, space is a dynamic sea in which each point has infinite energy. We do not perceive this energy because we do not have a direct experience of the infinitely small. Space, as we perceived it at our scale and at the scale of the universe, appears to be smooth and empty. The geometry of the sacred and feminine principle is that of the cubotrihedron. It is the only geometric solid whose all vectors are equal. It is perfectly balanced. 12 vectors start from the vertices and converge to a 13th point and singularity at the center of the structure. This is the essence of the sacred feminine principle. Infinity, the number 13, also represents the sacred feminine in matter. In two dimensions, the uh, cuboctahedron appears as a hectagon. In 3D, it can be seen as four intersecting hexagons. And then I guess this is also relevant. The sacred masculine principle, which I wasn't as interested in wondering about. Anyways, I think it's relevant though. The sacred masculine principle generates limits from the infinitely small to the infinitely large. Each dimension illustrates at different scales how finite contains infinity. The sacred masculine principle allows forms to exist, making experience in matter possible. The geometry of the sacred masculine principle is that of the tetrahedral star. This geometric structure has no center. However, it contains the geometry of the cuboctahedron, which is centered. The cuboctahedron is as invisible in this representation as the sacred feminine is to our eyes. Yet, however invisible it may be, the sacred feminine centers the sacred masculine, and only the sacred masculine allows the sacred feminine to manifest itself in matter. When feminine meets masculine. Alright, so I'm not completely on board with believing this geometric math principle, but it's still useful for what I've really been meaning to touch on. So, anyways, the structures of the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine are complementary. The suboctahedron consists of 8 tetrahedrons pointing in, while the tetrahedral star is formed of 8 tetrahedrons pointing out. From the infinitely small to the infinitely large, all forms are manifested in matter from the cuboctahedron and the tetrahedral star. These can only exist together as a structure composed of 64 tetrahedrons. They define the vacuum geometry, which contains infinite energy, the source of all creation. This geometry fits perfectly into the sphere, the most manifest form in nature. Vacuum geometry can be seen as the assembly of 8 tetrahedral stars, forming a cuboctahedron, invisible here in the center of the structure. 64 tetrahedrons are formed by the combination of the cuboctahedron and a tetrahedral star. Which of these tetrahedra fits perfectly into the sphere? The set of these spheres forms a cube, Metatron's cube, which gathers the 5 platonic solids. Okay, so my friend didn't go this far into it, but he would have actually if we continued the conversation. Anyways, the flower of life. Transposed in 2 dimensions, the pattern obtained by these interpenetrating spheres is that of the flower of life. Thus, the flower of life represents the balance set between the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, between the infinite and the feminine. All creation emerges and manifests itself from the field formed by the flower of life, and all creation returns to it. In its current representation, the flower of life is made up of 19 circles. Throughout these vacuum, geometry has 37 circles. The two-dimensional transposition of the spheres that form the vacuum geometry is more than just two-dimensional representation. The flower of life illustrates the physical principle known as the holographic principle. See the article Holographic Universe, the underlying unit. Our universe is holographic. It is physically built and deployed in the illusion of a separation at the heart of which reigns unity. Alright, it's getting a little too deep for me. And you guys may think I'm a freak with what I talk about in the way that I do, but okay. The fractal dance. Each structure, cubahedron, cuboctahedron, and tetrahedral star, grows thanks to the other, from infinitely small to infinitely large, like a fractal dance of the sacred feminine and masculine, in which the whole motive is repeated ad infinitum at all scales. Each fractal division manifests matter at a different level. The human being is the physical manifestation, which is halfway between the infinitely small and infinitely large. Everything is movement. Everything movement has simultaneous reciprocal movement. This double movement is based on only 2 forces at work in the universe: the gravitational force and the electromagnetic force. The cuboctahedron is the structure through which the gravitational force acts by generating a contraction movement. The tetrahedral star is the structure through which the electromagnetic force acts by generating an expanding movement. Thus, the dynamics of the vacuum structure present in everything is a simultaneous exchange between these 2 movements. The information exchanged is transmitted from one level to the next by these movements that grow fractally. From the infinitely small to the infinitely large, in the center, all moving cancel out. It is stillness, the singularity from which we observe the universe. A cyclone is a rotating mass formed by the pressure differences between 2 air masses. In the same way, these are different degrees of density, from the infinitely small to the infinitely large. It is this density gradient that explains the rotational motion of everything in the universe, like the sacred dance of female and male. Vacuum and manifestation of a great love story. Alright. Every star is a black hole. A black hole is created by the dance of the sacred feminine and sacred masculine. It's true, but not apparent. Movement oscillates from the singularity to the physical manifestation of the star as we see it, then from the manifestation to the singularity, and so on. This movement between the gravitational force and the electromagnetic force is so fast it takes place at the speed of light that our senses only perceive its physical manifestation. Read more on the movement and perception. Every star is a black hole, like everything that is manifested in the universe, from infinitely small to the universe itself. The flowers of spring are the dreams of winter, told in the morning at the table of angels. Okay. Every form is created in matter, dissolved in vacuum, recreated, dissolved again, etc., and continuously at the speed of light. Thus, the feedback between matter and vacuum is such that at our scale we have the illusion of experience each form in a continuity. The fact that any form is recreated quickly enough and close enough to the previous one gives us this perception. The heart. The heart embodies the gravitational singularity of biology. It is through the heart that we assess the information field of quantum vacuum. Thus, the heart always has access to the information before any other organ in the body, including the brain. Well, again, I'm going to be skeptical when they talk about like the heart in terms of the validity of its thinking. But I've been told this lately outside of this and outside of spirituality uh, conversations, so maybe it's true. I just haven't done research on it. Anyways, it is in fact the only organ that sends more information to the brain than it receives. Our self-awareness is based on the feedback of information between vacuum and matter. The deeper we are able to go inside ourselves to access the quantum field, the greater our radiation into matter will be. Indeed, there is a direct relationship between gravitational collapse and the expansion of the electromagnetic field. Alright. That's interesting. I'm pretty sure that's where the conversation with my friend would have went. Alright. So, well, I'm pretty much going to lose some of you guys if you're still listening to this as we speak. The third gender and Hijraz. So, if you know me, I've already made a video on a third gender called the Joyas, and those videos, you could find them titled The Extermination of the Joyas. It's actually very sad and devastating for our species that we have lost out on this type of way of building more friendships and communications and nuance in our species. Alright. While recognition of genders outside male and female has only recently been discussed in Western societies, in Hindu society, people of non-binary gender expression have played important roles for over 2,000 years. Called the third gender, evidence for their existence in Hindu society can be found in Hindu holy texts like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, where Hindu hero Arjuna becomes the third gender. Third gender people have been revered throughout South Asian history. For example, Muslim rulers of the Mughal Empire in 15th to 19th centuries were generous patrons of third gender Indians. Many rose to significant positions of power under both Hindu and Muslim rulers. In 2014, it was estimated that around 3 million third gender people live in India alone. While the third gender includes a few different groups in South Asia, the most common are the Hijras. Hijras are often born male but look and dress in traditionally feminine ways. Many, but not all, choose to undergo a castration ceremony, leaving their male genitalia as an offering to Hindu goddess Bahuchara Mata. So, if we're accepting the mutilation of children with castration under religious freedom, shouldn't we allow at least people to dress how they want? Like, honestly, especially if this is a religious circumstance, you would think people would at least not be hypocritical. Now, at least in the West, our the situation we're dealing with the trans in the Western world, I know I repeated myself. I was just distracted by something. It's not a religious thing, so. Anyways, um, hold on. Okay, other Hijras are born intersex, often called transgender by outsiders. Indian societies and most Hijras consider themselves to be third gender, neither male nor female, not transitioning. They are different gender altogether, although Hijra identity is complex and recently some have identified as transgender and sought gender reassignment procedures. And you notice throughout history you won't find children being mutilated by this. Historically, when people like to hate on the trans movement and call out like child mutilation, it's Dr. Money, which was based on religious circumcision, which we would not hear about if it wasn't for it being scapegoated as a trans decision afterwards, which is actually quite sad. Like, if this didn't have anything to do with circumcision, it still would be nice to know that this was happening, just to say this is not this is medical malpractice if this really was a transitioning circumstance, but it was circumcision via Dr. Money. So the hypocrisy would only flow, the facts wouldn't matter. Okay. Regardless, most Hijra's defining characteristic is leaving home to become a part of the Hijra community, a community which removes itself from a wider society and teaches its lesson in secret. A young person is initiated by following a guru, a teacher who will teach the Chela, a disciple in the Hijra ways of life. Um, I mean, this kind of sounds weird if it's in secret, but anyways, there's always been societies sort of like this. It's just few and far in between, or it's just erased because the victors make society, and for the most part, it is the hetero binary systems that tend to make it. All right. This includes leaving their home to live with the community with other Hijras to learn the ritual roles that they perform in Hindu household. Hijras are expected to perform dances, songs, and blessings at both births and weddings of Hindus. To many Hindus, a Hidra's blessings of the baby will confer fertility, prosperity, and long life on the child. 1 of 2 days after the marriage ceremony, Hidras will perform to bless the couple for fertility. To many Hindus, it is the third gender nature of Hidras, including their sacrifice of their procreative ability to the goddess, that grants Hidras this incredible religious power. In fact, Hidras also can curse a family if they are disrespectful or refuse to pay for the blessings. Many Hindus and their Hidras themselves take these blessings and curses very seriously. Hidras say that they only curse in extreme circumstances. While Hidras often invited to perform these rituals, they will often attend births and marriages unannounced, claiming the right to attend at these sacred religious duties. Claiming the right to attend as their sacred. Okay, so if there's just like people having a birthday and it's like people come through your wall, it's like, we're here to bless you. Wow. I don't think so. I would like to think there's some type of explanation that isn't being like given. All right. Fearful of receiving a curse from Hidras, Hindu families often welcome them and pay them for their services, even when uninvited. However, sometimes Hindu families refuse them entirely or refuse to pay, even going as far as calling the police. Still, the cultural authority of the Hidra is so powerful that the police will often do nothing to remove them. Hidras are often treated with both respect and fear. Man, this is weird. Like, you would never have this much leeway in the West with a third gender or the trans community, I mean, they are being a religious entity, so I can see the fierceness being attached to that. So this isn't really that too weird at all, to be fair. Like, you can think the trans thing is weird, third gender, oh my god, how could you do that? But all in all, from a religious standpoint, honestly, this is a drop in the bucket. Alright. Historically and culturally, Hijras are based in Hinduism and they perform solely for Hindus. However, Hijras are not all Hindu themselves. Many are Muslim and few are Christian. In fact, some Hijras follow the beliefs and practices of both Hinduism and Islam. For example, some Hijras center their community around the Hindu goddess Barucharas Mata while also taking a Muslim name and observing Islamic traditions such as Ramadan. Just as Hijras are not limited by binary views of gender, some are not limited by a single religious tradition. While Hijras have been treated with both fear and respect for thousands of years, much of this respect did not survive Hinduism's encounter with colonialism. The British colonized most of South Asia in the 19th century and 20th centuries and were shocked by third gender people. Based in Christian beliefs about third gender at the time, the British named all Hijras criminals in 1871 and instructed colonial authorities to arrest them on sight. However, because of their important religious functions for Hindus, Hijras persisted without significant interruptions. Still, nearly 200 years of stigmatization by the British eventually took a toll. While Hijras have maintained their traditional rights and responsibilities at births and marriages, and the 1871 law was repealed shortly after independence, today Hijras are often treated with contempt. They are almost always excluded from employment and education outside of their ritual roles. As a result, they are often stricken by poverty and forced to resort to begging and prostitution to survive. They are often victims of violence and abuse, harassed by police, and refused treatment at hospitals. So, I feel like as things became more fundamentalist on the right, it's possible that things became more fertility cult based as birth rates declined. And so, this is probably why neoliberalistic market could potentially push this type of stuff away because of um, pushing secularism to the populace as the moral reason for having less religion. And so this wouldn't be a stance against trans or third gender people, just a stance against religion as a broader topic. But of course, this would also be attacking third gender people. But anyways, um, they're almost always excluded from employment and stricken by. Okay. Okay. Recently, Hijras have regained some of the rights and freedoms which they have been denied. By 2014, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh had all officially recognized third gender people as citizens deserving of equal rights. The Supreme Court of India stated it is the right of every human being to choose their gender, and that recognition of the group is not a social or medical issue, but a human rights issue. They directed the government to open education job opportunities to all third gender groups. While progress has been slow, in 2015 the first Hijra mayor in India was elected in the city of Raigarh, and in 2017 the city of Kochi hired 23 Hijra to work for their public transit system. Still, progress is slow, and most third gender people remain in poverty, even as they continue to bless Hindu families with prosperity. Excellent. So, remember, if you're still watching, guys, you should read up on the extermination of the Joyas. It's pretty interesting, very sad, but it gives you a tiny little image of a people that could be if we didn't just erase them. Alright. I'll be back in the next one, guys.